Hi, DOS Time Travel will be my new mini-series in which I'll take a closer look at DOS games in a particular genre or subgenre in the perspective of time, based on one notable game per year, in ascending order. It will most likely not be the best game, I have many videos on the best ones already, so we can expect some lesser known but interesting titles too. We start with scrolling platformers, so let's jump straight in. I know what I said, and I know that Contra is hardly an unknown title, but it was definitely not one that was widespread and popular on DOS, at least when compared to other games released on the platform. If you're familiar with the NES version, you'll feel right at home on PC, though it won't be lost on you that some things are a lot different. And it's because DOS Outing is ported straight from the arcades and NES was considerably modified and expanded upon. DOSport is the only one out of all computer versions to have 9 out of 10 arcade levels. All other systems had less, usually between 5 and 7. It's not all great though, as it has its own issues, and I'm definitely not disputing that, and they're all no doubt clearly visible on the video, but we'll get to that in a minute. On an odd chance that you never played it, let me explain what it actually is. Contra is this run-and-gun platforming shooter for 1 or 2 players in which you play as 80s archetype of a hero. So, a lone mountain of overgrown muscles wielding a huge-ass gun and annihilating enemies left and right. Simply put, if it moves, shoot at it. Don't think about it, just shoot and you'll be all good. In fact, the whole gameplay loop, the objective of it all, could be simplified to get to the exit alive. Contra takes place in the year 2633, 2 years after a meteorite has fallen into Galuga Archipelago, located 20 kilometers, so roughly a little over 12 miles, northeast of coast of New Zealand. And its landing point, a crater, is now a base of operation for a terrorist group known as Red Falcon, who seized the island in preparation for the alien invasion, clearly based on their findings inside the remnants of the rock. To neutralize the villains, 2 Marines are sent onto the location, Rambo and Commando. Nope, that's not it. Let me try again. Rocky and Balboa. Also wrong. I know I had it somewhere. Oh, here it is. Bill Reiser and Lance Bean. Not as catchy names, I'm afraid, but as deadly heroes. And now you, alone or with a friend, must take control of the Buff Boys and retake the island. I did promise earlier on to tell you all about the bed, and I've took my sweet time with it, so that you could witness for yourself what it is. And while most versions of the game on home systems looked and played great, DOS Outing sports CGA graphics and entails everything that's expected with that. So awful looking 4-color palette, terribly jerky and disturbing to the eye scrolling, single-digit frame rates and painfully uncomfortable control scheme. All that under the roof of one game. Contra on PC is rather terrible, and most likely one of, if not the worst gameplay-wise port to the home systems. Did it matter in 1988 for those who had it? Nope, not really. Those of us who owned it on PC then knew no better, and played the heck out of this mistake in video game design. Also, and it can't be discounted here either, Contra is a good start-off point to this video to show how fast and how far those platformers evolved. Is 1 year a lot of time? I suppose that's subjective. 1 year in jail is eternity, but 1 year on a paradise island sipping drinks and having time of your life may be near instantaneous. But released just a year after Contra Stormlord, looked as if there was at least half a decade between them. No longer in painful and heavily contrasting 4 colors, Stormlord sported beautiful for the time VGA presentation, even if somehow all these colors seem to be leaning towards various shades of brown. So brown with more brown on top of brown, and all in a solid and as black as my boss's wife's soul background. Fun. Anyway, Stormlord is an action platformer with adventure elements, and you play as the Master of the Storm. But despite the game's title, similar buff chest and dense beard, you're not Thor. At least not MCU Thor. Your fantasy adventure mission, should you choose to accept it and be the hero that you are, is to save the fairies. Yep, those magical winged little women that run a complex business scheme based on children's tooth trading. Who do they sell these to? It's hard to tell, but it must be worth their time and effort if they've been doing it for at least as long as I live. So yeah, the evil witch that for whatever the reason is nameless kidnapped all of the fairies in vengeance for something, we're not told what, but I suppose they were imposing on witch's tooth trading turf and she had to take action. And you have to rescue the fairies to restore the peace to your kingdom. To complete each stage you have to find a certain number of these and free them to progress further. To do so, however, you'll need to defeat the numerous different enemies, as much as solve some minor puzzles by use of many objects that you'll discover on your way. Most of these puzzles are pretty simple and have very obvious solutions, like having to use the honeypot to lead the bees away from the ferry that they're guarding. Nothing too demanding as you see, but definitely adding to the gameplay and a mechanic that those of us that had small 8-bit microcomputers like C64 or ZX Spectrum for instance were well used to. Stormlord is not the easiest of games out there, but it's pretty fun and definitely worth completing if you don't mind the simplicity that is. Graphics wise, it has a very early Amiga-esque quality to it with a lot of attention given to your character and all the enemy sprites. Sound design is not great, but you can only squeeze out as much out of the aging PC screecher. PC speaker. Batman by Ocean is based on 1989's Tim Burton's movie and loosely follows its plot. It's a mostly action platformer with some puzzling arcade racing and flying sections in between, all to keep it fresh and funky, just the way Batman himself was. Oh wait, it's actually 1960s Batman that was fresh and funky, and Tim Burton's was dark and punchy. Cause he would punch but not kill. Anyway, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight, Batman?
Well, have you ever had to collect all your teeth from the floor, Joker?
Is probably the best way to describe the relationship of the two characters. They're black and white, they're yin and yang, one's good and just, with just a touch of crazy caused by his parents' killing. The other's all the way insane, with a bit of logic and reason behind his evil scheming. They are in fact made for each other, and complement one another like no other. The game is divided into 5 unique stages, first being side-scrolling platformer that takes place in Axis chemical plant, where you have to find Jack Napier and knock him into the vat of chemicals, effectively turning him into Joker, Batman's long-lost lover. Then there's the Batmobile stage, in which you're driving back to your Batcave, rushing like crazy, cutting through the traffic, no doubt with the number 2 on the verge of passing the finish line, hoping to make it to the toilet on time. Third level is set in Batcave, a minute or so after you've washed your hands, and it's a mastermind-like puzzle in which you have to identify what products were poisoned by the Joker. Fourth stage takes place during Joker's parade, and Batman in his Batwing needs to cut balloons filled with maniacally laughing antagonists' deadly gas. And finally, last, 5th stage is similar to the first one in that it's also a platformer where you have to chase Joker climbing to the top of Gotham Cathedral to stop him before he escapes in the helicopter. The 2 main platforming stages are the longest, which is good, as overall the game isn't. Long and not good. And they're definitely the most fun. You have Batarangs and Batline at your disposal, and you have to defeat the number of armed buddies on the way to your objective. Some of them run around like lunatics, others shoot guns as soon as they see you, and some even throw grenades. A bit of an overkill for one person to put down if you ask me, but it's Batman, so I can understand them wanting to be sure. They're all not something our caped hero can deal with, but there's quite a few of them, often all at once, so quick reflexes and a keen eye are a must to do well in these levels. While Batman was critically acclaimed and appreciated, being one of the very few decent movie tie-ins, I preferred C64's version of this as it was somehow, at least to me, more playable. That said, it's a game that's while short, is pretty enjoyable to beat. The Blues Brothers is an action platformer for 1 or 2 players, based on the band from the cult movie of the same name. A pretty cool movie, I must add, and if you've not seen it, watch it, it's a bit old but still quite entertaining. Anyway, Jake and Elwood, the titular Blues Brothers, had their band's instruments and gear stolen. All of them, short of Elwood's harmonica that he always keeps on himself. Since brothers have a concert to play soon, like in literally just a few hours, you have to jump in, take control and help them recover all the missing items. Normally, in a situation such as this one, you'd seek help of the police, check the CCTV footage or whatever, but since the Blues Brothers don't play well with the boys in blue, you're the only one that they can count on. And the missing items you're after are the guitar, microphone, amplifier, poster and the concert permit. So you'll embark on this blues-filled mission as either of the brothers, or both with a friend, on an adventure and a half seeking stolen property. The game is built out of 6 levels, and as you go through them, you have to avoid the police, vigilantes, grannies in shopping carts, because they clearly had to make an appearance, and everything in between, to eventually get to play that blues concert to your dozen or so of fans. Basically, everything that you'll meet on your way and is moving is out there to get you and should be evaded or disposed of. Fortunately, you're not helpless and can pick up omnipresent crates and throw them at the enemies, completely disregarding crate ownership and the damages that you're causing in the process. But who could blame you? You're doing it for the music. The premise of the game may seem simple, but since it's realized nigh perfectly with smartly designed levels and cute buddies, Blues Brothers end up being really fun and even won some Best Game Awards upon its release. It's worth pointing out once again that the game is not based on the movie, but both of its protagonists, which is more than fine in my eyes, as movie tie-ins tend to be trash, and not being tied to the movie's plot allows the game to do its own thing and be fun at the same time. Blues Brothers graphics are rather good, and while they don't shock with the on-screen effects or details, they fit well to the in-game action and theme. And the music is based off of 4 tracks found in the movie, so pretty cool too. Overall, if you like platformers, then first of all, you're watching the right video, and secondly, this one's pretty fun, especially if you can find someone to play it with. Though it has to be noted that in 2-player mode, it tends to get a bit chaotic. Magic Pockets is an unusual title for me. For the longest time I thought that it was an Amiga exclusive, then years later I learned that it originally actually released on Atari ST, and then, even later on, that it had a couple of different ports too, one of them being to DOS. And it's that last that we actually cover today. So, most that I thought I knew and assumed about it for years was incorrect. Fortunately, all of it is largely irrelevant, and more of an internal me problem than anything else. So, Magic Pockets is a 2D side-view action platformer. It places you in the shoes of the so-called bitmap kid, who has to travel through 4 distinct worlds of cave, jungle, river and mountain, split into 4 levels each for a total of 16 stages, all to recover his toys that had been stolen. These worlds are entirely unique to one another, but more than in most other games in the genre, because it's not only the presentation that changes, but also the enemies, pickups and even the weapons that you can use. If you can even call them that, as you sorta summon them from your bottomless pocket. And no, that's not just phrasing, your pockets, as the title clearly states, are magical and bottomless. So, in the first world, you toss tornadoes left and right out of said pocket, in second clouds, cause everyone fears clouds, in third ice cubes, not multiples of a wrapper, but those used to cool down drinks, and in the last snowballs, clearly loaded with a stone inside to cause as much damage as possible upon hitting their intended targets. Interestingly enough, all these can also be used to solve simple environmental puzzles you come across, and not only as means of distraction. Each of those quote-unquote weapons can be charged up by holding the button, and then they are released at an increased size and power. Other than this, you will occasionally find a fireball or a spiky weapon, but these have to be tracked down and aren't available at all times. There's also a bubblegum pickup allowing you to glide, and TV that when interacted with reveals all enemies in the level. Most worlds also have special areas that change the gameplay mechanic a little to keep Magic Pockets fresh all throughout. And this can be riding a bike, swimming and few others that I think I'll let you discover on your own. And while they're not necessary in this already fun game, they make it even better. Story-wise, Bitmap Kid has his magical trousers since he could remember. I mean, they were always there, they grew with him, quite literally, and he always wore them. He didn't wash them with chemicals, only dry cleaned them and took care of them as if they were made out of pure gold. Which in a way they were, since they had bottomless pockets. So he kept everything in them. All the allowance that he got, all the toys, couple of tornadoes, few tons of ice cubes and even a full-sized piano that he just never took out. Heck, there were even some odd creatures living there in his pockets, and honestly he was quite fine with that, because you know, you don't look gifted magical pants in their pockets. Those creatures, however, were not as friendly as our protagonist hoped that they would be, and stole his toys. So now, being a victim to a theft, you're out to recover what's yours. And while it may not be my favorite platformer, it is based on an interesting mechanics, and is definitely worth a playthrough. Yojo is so weird, man, but also really, really good. I mean, let's take a quick look at its bizarre story. All kinds of evil and nasty no-gooders have gathered together to sell drugs in a joint venture, as if they were incorporated or something and not working against each other, fighting for turf and customers. What's more, they're a really unusual bunch, so you'll be able to find near anyone between them. From a vampire through a half-sister of an Indian goddess, all the way to the mad cyborg Professor X. Nope, not the same one that created the X-Men. Well, unless these weirdos are his X-Men. Anyway, since they clearly want to plan out their expenses and expansion into the new markets, they all went to the Oracle to inquire about their next year's drug sales takings. And no, I'm afraid that all that is not just my imagination. There are a few even more stupid subplots in the game, but they're all unimportant, as fortunately Yojo defends itself with its gameplay. And easily, I must add. That said, one thing is worth adding to it all, and it's that the Oracle tells the baddies that the two protagonists, young and hip graffiti artists, have to die for them to be successful in their endeavors. And this is where the game begins. Yojo is an interesting, if a bit underrated and generally overlooked title. All 6 of its levels are quite big, and at first they may even seem a bit overwhelming because they're not straightforward left to right first, often having multiple paths and corridors leading to completely different areas. but as soon as you get used to that design choice and freedom of exploration, you'll begin to appreciate the scope of it all, as it will always feel as if there's something new and hidden to be discovered and that your exploration is rewarded in one way or another. If nothing else, then at least having to know that the power-ups in form of one of the few weapons may be hidden anywhere can be a factor encouraging to look around each and every corner. And while these weapons can be nunchucks, lead pipes or Molotov cocktails among others, they can be lost upon death or when they run out of charges, so make sure to be careful how you use them. Fortunately, two of the deadliest in the entire game weapons, and coincidentally the universe as well, never run out. And they bring justice to all manner of enemies by means of accurately delivered punches to the groin and kicks to the head. All levels have unique to them themes and are separated by a sort of a mini-game-like bonus flying sections. And although these are not very long or demanding, they're a nice break from all the platforming and monster fighting. And since we're on the subject, the game is filled with many unusual and distinctive types of enemies, all feeling really imaginative and different from one another. So you'll be putting down skeletons, vampires, cannibals and even ninjas, depending how far you are in the game. Bosses too are pretty unique, even if they're kind of a hit and miss gameplay-wise. All of that put together make Yojo a very console-like experience. Maybe not as good as Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis classics were, but very, very close. I'd say a spit away from being as good. In single player, that is. Because what I haven't told you yet is that the game is also playable in a very well executed simultaneous couch co-op for 2 players. And this is where the curtains go up, lights hit the stage and the real show begins. You know how people often say that playing with someone is better than by themselves? Usually I'd raise an argument that it depends with whom and what game and all the other speculative blah blah blah, but this game is actually much better when played with a friend. While Soccer Kid was a well-known and beloved title on the Amiga that it originated from, it was rather obscure on the other systems it released for, thus being one of them. And it's a pity, cause it's excellent. It's a side-view football/soccer themed platformer in which the ball is your main tool in both traversal and combat. In fact, the entire gameplay mechanics is built around it. You can kick it to attack the enemies, it can be used to collect items, rather than you having to go and grab them yourself, especially that they're often in unreachable spots. And you can also jump on it to propel yourself much higher than you could have jumped otherwise. And that's barely scratching the surface of what you can do with it. It's super useful. Soccer Kid plays a lot like 16-bit console title. It doesn't feel like a computer game at all, but rather like something that should be run off of a cartridge and experienced with a gamepad in hand. And yes, that's a compliment. And also yes, so a second yes already, it would be better with a gamepad. Because while I had an Amiga for years and C64 before too, I never understood why joystick's movement up for jump was an acceptable control method rather than offering support for twin-button controllers. Whatever, I'm complaining for the sake of complaining and in regard to systems that we're not even covering today. Anyway, there's obviously a story to Soccer Kid, and while it's as simple and silly as they come, it sets the mood for gameplay quite well. So, aliens heard about Football World Cup. Naturally, I mean everyone heard about it, even people like myself who care not for the sport, and they came to Earth with a plan to steal the football trophy. Why? Hard to tell, but my best bet is that while they have the technology to travel between the universes and see the stars, they cannot craft a large cup made out of piece of shiny metal covered with a cheap paint. Yeah. Anyway, what they planned for, they did, and as they were fleeing away with the trophy, sipping champagne and patting each other on their backs, they accidentally crashed and the cup was broken into 5 pieces that scattered, and each of them landed in a different part of the world. When you learned about it, you being the football/soccer aficionado that you are, took upon yourself to travel around the globe to get all of them back. So, you put on your favorite jersey, grab your football ball, and set off to do just that. Soccer Kid is divided into 5 worlds of 3 levels each, and there are Britain, Italy, Russia, Japan and USA. They all have their own unique design and landmarks, and all are a pixel graphic marvels to witness. And since we're on the subject, Soccer Kid presentation is overall fantastic. The attention to detail in each sprite, big or small, each piece of background and the enemies is well beyond what you'd expect from a PC platformer in 1994. There's color everywhere, spilling from the screen all over. It's just phenomenal. And state of the art for the genre at the time. A little omission though, and something I feel is tad disappointing, but not game breaking in any way, is lack of rain and parallax scrolling, and both were present in the Amiga original. It's not a big issue, but I feel it could have been easily coded in on PC. That said, I have not written a single line of code for those, so perhaps I'm wrong. All in all, Soccer Kid is easily one of the best and most fun platformers of the time, and definitely in my top 3 for the year. Earthworm Jim is a run-and-gun action platformer in which you're the titular worm. You're not all elongated, slimy and powerless, however, but sporting an advanced spacesuit that grants you arms, legs and a gun to spread destruction and domination all around. Well, I'm not sure how much of that domination is there to spread if every enemy that you leave behind is in a non-responsive / dead state, incapable of worshipping you as its new overlord. But it could be argued that you're dominating the levels by destroying the enemies. It's a bit of a stretch, but technically speaking not incorrect. Anyway, when necessary and when you have no other choice, you can also use your wormy body in variety of ways to overcome environmental obstacles. You know, in the obligatory environmental puzzling sections. So you can whip your enemies into submission when you're short of ammo, like any other sadistic worm would. You can use your body as a grappling hook to swing away from or over dangers, or have it spin like a helicopter blades to hover for a short time, breaking the otherwise deadly fall from great height into a spiky demise, for instance. While most levels are your typical platforming fare of going from start to finish, killing anything that moves and is not you, with an occasional end-stage boss, some have special conditions to be completed, like escorting a specific character, protecting them along the way, for instance. Bosses themselves are aplenty and varied and have the most bizarre of names you've heard. So likes of Queen Slug for a bat, Evil the cat, or Bob the killer goldfish are really nothing out of ordinary in Earthworm Jim. Every few levels or so, the game throws unnecessary but welcome palette cleaner at you in the form of space racing sequences, underwater mazes, or a bungee jumping competition. They really didn't need to be included in the game, but provide a nice break from holding the fire button and all the killings. And you will do a lot of it. Killing, that is. I mean, if the enemies wouldn't disappear after being downed, the bodies would pile up to the top of the screen in no time. How did Jim came to be though? Well, up until recently, he's been a pretty normal earthworm, you know, digging tunnels in earth as they do, occasionally munching on a fallen off of tree apple, and living his short perhaps but very comfortable and enjoyable worm life. Until one day, seemingly out of nowhere, in reality straight from the sky, a super suit fell, landed on Jim and opened his eyes to the world of possibilities, giving him limbs to become the super worm. It would be great if I could cue some kinds of drums or fanfares here in the post, but I'm like 95% sure that I'll forget. Anyway, from this point onward, Jim must fight the outer space bodies that want the suit back, as once he dipped his toe, or well, end of his tail really, in the pool of limb owner's possibilities, he's not keen on reverting back to his old and boring slimy state. This is where the game begins, and also, coincidentally, where I get to its summary. Frantic and constant action and variety of gameplay styles keeps Earthworm Jim interesting and fun all the way through. The fact that it looks and sounds as if it was taken straight out of the cartoon, it's only a cherry on this already sweet pie of a game. So if you're a fan of run and gunners, make sure not to sleep on this one, as there's very few as good games as this one in the subgenre. Alien Rampage is a 2D scrolling action platformer. And while I would love to say that it's another run and gunner, it's more of a walk and pew-pewer. Nothing wrong with that, just doesn't sound as good. Its story is beyond stupid too, and I really mean it. Believe it or not, it's even dumber than that of Yo Joe. So you're this green alien dude, an equivalent of Rambo but with more green on his skin and a lot of misdirected and unreleased aggression. And you're flying around the space, as one does, not getting in anyone's way, minding your own green alien business, when suddenly, while passing over a particularly lush and beautiful planet, your ship is shot down and you crash land on it. Planet, not the ship. Now, on any other day, you'd let it slide. Because, you know, mistakes happen, people shoot at people, aliens shoot at aliens because of a whole manner of different misunderstandings, most of which can be forgiven. But what the shooters did not know is that on that particular day you, so a shootee, had a massive toothache. One likes of which none had known in the universe before. And your tolerance for pain was not great. I mean, you're you, so you could definitely handle it, but you were on the edge all the freaking time, waiting for someone to mess with you so that you could put them in their place. And this happened. So, instead of acting like a grown-up alien and punishing those who shot at you, you decided to annihilate the entire species to cleanse the planet. That's how stupidly the game begins. That's also all there is to it, and we never get any more background to it. Oh, and the tooth bit was not there. I think my imagination just took over for a minute or so. Anyway, all that is unimportant because Alien Rampage as a game is great. While it was not praised for its graphics when it released, I really don't understand why, as to me it looks pretty darn good. At the very least on the same level that some of the best 2D platformers on competing systems offered at the time. The sprites are huge, and I really mean huge when I say it. One of the bosses, for instance, a flying skull of sorts, easily takes like a fourth of a screen in size. Not to mention game's very atmospheric, dark design and beautiful multi-layer parallax scrolling. But while it's great when the game looks as good as this one does, it's Alien Rampage's fast and frantic gameplay that's what's most fun about it. It's gory, action-packed and instantly addicting. All 20 levels of it, split into 3 distinct worlds so to speak, are equally as fun, filled with numerous, often hideous-looking alien creatures, simple environmental puzzling, and tons upon tons of pixelated gore-fueled fun. Oh, and there's a shop in each stage too, so that you could top up on ammo for your special weapons. If you like games like Duke Nukem, yeah, the one before 3D, and maybe Turrican, though not many know it on PC really, then Alien Rampage is something you'll instantly fall in love with, as it's easily one of the better lesser known games that came out at the tail end of DOS's life. Alien Rampage should have been more popular when it released, but sadly never gained the recognition it deserved. It's an 8+ title for me, and the only thing that I find annoying about it is that it only saves your progress after completing the level, which is hardly a game-breaking issue, but a slight annoyance given their sizes nonetheless. After barely escaping the evil tomato in the first game, our 3 heroes came back home and carried on living their Viking lives as if nothing ever happened. And you gotta kinda get that, cause back then an average lifespan was at around 30-40 years tops, and whomever crossed the 4-0 mark was instantly touted an elder that knew more than the rest of the Viking village combined. I mean, back then, when we had no antibiotics and most illnesses were cured with either balms made out of piss, mud and some random leaves, or sometimes ritualistic dances on drugs, a rusty nail sticking out of the plank somewhere was as dangerous to one's life as an army of enemies was. So yeah, they were all home, having the time of their lives, riding, killing and setting enemy villages aflame or whatever the else Vikings do, never missing dinner. Until one day, Tomato came back, appearing seemingly out of nowhere and sending his robotic guard to capture our trio and send them into the arena. Fortunately, guard's batteries failed or whatever, so being as crafty as you are, 3 of you dismantled him into pieces and now wear those pieces as your armors, each of them granting our heroes new abilities. If the story ended here though, with no game to play, so naturally something else must have happened. And it did. All 3 of you have been transported mysteriously through time again, and once more have to fight your way through the unknown lands to get back home. Lost Vikings 2 Norse by Norsewest is a much less known game than its predecessor was, at least on PC, so that we're clear that I'm not talking about consoles as it did quite well there. For the most part, same as the original, Lost Vikings 2 is a puzzle platformer, and identically to its predecessor, our trio of protagonists have to get home, pushing relentlessly through dozens of enemies-filled puzzle-locked of platforming stages, utilizing their skills to solve the levels and progress further. This time, however, Eric the Swift, Olaf the Stout and Balog the Fierce are joined by 2 new heroes, Sofang the Werewolf and Scourge the Dragon. Odd additions, but whatever, such is the case of sequels made by different developers. 3 out of 5 of these are predetermined for each level and are chosen in a way that would require all of their skills to contribute to solving all the puzzles included. To complete a level, you need to find and collect 3 different items and deliver all your Vikings, well, and / or creatures to the exit. If any of the character dies, the level is unwinnable and will require a restart. That said, you have to do it manually, as the game allows you to keep going even if you can't complete the level anymore, so that you could familiarize yourself with the layouts, puzzles and better prepare for the second attempt, or third, or fourth, or fifth, cause you know, some of these can be really punishing if you don't know them by heart. Generally speaking, the levels are nearly as well designed as in the original and are easily as tough, if not tougher too. So, if you're someone who's fast to quit, it may not necessarily be the game for you. On the flip side, figuring out those more complicated stages feels really rewarding, so if not for anything else, it can be worth persevering just for that. And now I will tell you what I don't like about the game. As believe it or not, there is one thing actually, and it's the graphics. I feel that the first outing's pixel presentation aged way better than the pre-rendered Donkey Kong Country-like looks of the second. Some like it, I don't, today that is, but wasn't a big fan of it back then either. With first episode out of the way, I'm really curious what you think about this new series. I look at the particular genre or subgenre through the years of DOS, based on some of the less mainstream games, as good representatives of average that the platform was capable of, known for, and what were the experiences that it could offer. Make sure to let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too, it helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.